Okay, for today's lesson, we are doing lesson 2.2, one-digit dividers. By the end of the lesson, your learning intention is to be able to divide by a one-digit divisor using the traditional algorithm. Your success criteria for the lesson, you should be able to, in order to be able to achieve the learning intention, you have to estimate the quotient. You have to know where to place the first digit in the traditional algorithm. You have to, of course, divide, and there's steps to that. You have to identify the quotient and remainder once you're done dividing. And then always check by multiplying and adding only if there is a remainder. Things that you will have to know how to do, prerequisites before starting, is rounding numbers, because that's part of your estimating. Name the dividend and the quotient. You should know what those are. Divide, multiply, and subtract. Okay, so our first example problem, we're going to do our first 4 steps of our success criteria. If we are dividing, the first thing we want to do is we want to round, because that's going to also give us an idea of how large our final quotient will be. It will also tell us where to place the first digit. So if we are rounding our dividend, so we're only going to round one number. We are not rounding the divisor. If we are going to round our dividend, we're rounding it to the largest place value. And in this case, the largest place value would be 2. This number tells you what to do. It would round to 3,000. It says to raise the score, so we raise it to 3,000. However, if we were dividing by 9, we can't easily get an estimated answer dividing 9 into 30. That would take a little bit longer. So we want something we could do in our head. So that is why we are going to be using compatible numbers. So when we're rounding, we're finding a compatible number. We're going to be rounding maybe the first 2 digits. In this case, I'm going to be rounding 2,754 to 27. So I could round it to 3,000, but I'm going to round it to 27, because knowing what I know about 9s, I know 9 goes evenly into 27. So I'm just going to place zeros for the other numbers. And now I can I can divide into 27. Ignore the zeros for now. And I know that 9 goes into 27 3 times. And then I place 2 zeros at the end. So my answer is going to be close to 300 once I start dividing. So when I'm dividing, I'm going to go ahead and set up my divisor with a box. I'm going to put my dividend, that's usually the larger number, but not always, inside of the box. Doesn't matter about the commas right now. So now that I'm dividing, I have to know where to place the first digit. So if I'm dividing into 9, which is really 2,000, but I'm only worrying about the first digit, can I divide into the 2 evenly? I can't. So I'm going to go to the next digit. And I'm going to go ahead, since I can't divide into 2, I'm going to divide into 27. So first step is know what you're dividing into. I'm dividing into 27. So now it's going to be, as if we break this apart, plus 50 plus 4. So I'm going to have to do these two together. So I'm dividing into 27. I'm going to put an X here that tells me, nope, can't divide there. Start dividing into 27. If I have 27 Skittles, 9 people are sharing. That means everybody's going to get 3. First step is to divide. So know I'm dividing into this. Find the quotient, which is the 3, and I'm going to multiply. So 9 times 3 is 27. After I multiply, next step is to subtract. And I subtract and I get a 0. Then I bring everything down that I haven't used, but 1 digit at a time. So I did not use the 5, so I'm going to bring that down. And now I'm dividing the 9 into the 5. So now I'm dividing down here, not up here anymore because I brought it down. So 9, 5 Skittles if we think about that, because it's really 50, but we're ignoring the 0. So if I'm dividing 9 into 5, so 5 Skittles, 9 people sharing. Can we share? We can't. It's not enough. So I know everybody's going to get 0. Some students will skip and keep going. I'll show you that on my common mistakes. But just know if they get 0, write the 0. So next step, after I find the quotient, I multiply. So 9 times 0 is 0. After I multiply, I subtract. So 5 take away 0, it's still 5 because nobody got anything, so I have all of them. So next step is to, after I subtract, I bring down the rest of the partial dividend. It's always 1 digit at a time. And now I figure out what I'm dividing into. I start all over again every time I bring something down. So now I'm dividing the 9 into 54. 9 can go into 54. 54 Skittles, 9 people sharing them. I know everybody can get 6. Notice how I'm writing all of my quotients right on top of the last digit of the number I'm dividing into. Okay, so here I do 9 times 6. After I divide, I times 9 times 6, and 9 times 6 is 54. After I multiply, I subtract. 54 Skittles, use 54 of them. How many do I have left? I have 0. So after that, and there's nothing else to bring down, I know my answer is 306, which is very close to my estimated answer. There's nothing else to bring down. There's no remainder, so I'm all done. Last step is to identify the quotient. The quotient is 306, and the remainder is 0. You always want to make sure that you, after you identify the quotient, which was, we said 306, no remainders. We check by multiplying and adding. We're multiplying the divisor and the quotient, and we should get the largest number, the dividend, and we would add our remainder in. I don't have a remainder, so I'm just going to go ahead and check my answer by multiplying. So if I did this correct, I should get this dividend. So 6 times 9 is 54. So far, so good. Oopsie. Except I actually have to write. Oopsie. Except I actually have to write 54. Let me go up here. And there we go. Okay. Now I need 54. And I know, because chapter 1, we're doing 9 times 0, which is 0, plus 5 is 5. And 9 times 3 is 27. Did I get my original answer? I did, so I did it right. Yay. Okay, make sure you have your success criteria written down. Let's do some practice problems. Actually, let me show you some common mistakes first. Common mistakes. What students will do is place the first digit of the quotient above the wrong number. So if I was doing... That is really big. If I was doing my first problem, I'm just going to leave that. If I was doing my first problem of 9, 2000, 54. If I was doing my original problem and I placed the first digit here, that wouldn't be correct. I would end up getting the wrong answer. And this means I'm dividing that into the 2. And I'm not. I'm actually dividing into the 27. So my first digit shouldn't go there. That's a common mistake. It should go here. Another common mistake, and what will help you with this, would be to do an X. That tells you I'm not dividing there. Another common mistake is not bringing the partial dividend down. So after I get done dividing, I know this is a 0. Sometimes we don't bring that partial dividend down. We'll forget it and we'll just skip it and go to the next number. So make sure you're not doing that. Another common mistake is forgetting about the zeros. This is a really good example because this actually has the zeros in it. Students will sometimes forget to write the 0. I had just previously told you anytime there's a 0, it is shared 0 times. Make sure you write it. Students will often go, oh, it doesn't get shared any at all. You can't share 5 Skittles with 9 people. So let's go ahead and bring the next number down, and they'll do that. And then they'll go ahead and they'll say, oh, it goes in there 6 times. So my answer is 36. That's wrong. Remember, our answer was 306. Which is much different than everybody getting 36 Skittles. In fact, those 9 students are going to be upset if you give them 36, and they should have gotten 306 Skittles each. So please make sure that you write the 0, because it was not doing this. It's 1 digit at a time, which means it goes in 0 times, and we should have wrote that. Also, another giveaway is that if you end over here and you still have another number, you did something wrong. So don't forget about writing the zeros, and then the place values aren't lined up. So sometimes they will write their answer in the middle, and then they'll end up like dividing that 2 times and they'll get another one. So make sure your numbers are lined up right on top of each other. So those are very common mistakes. So let's go ahead now and do some practice problems. Remember, this one you're going to do with me. The second one, once you start it, you are going to do that. Pause the video, start it on your paper, and then unpause and check back in with the answer. So the first one, I'm going to go ahead and remember, first step is to estimate the quotient. So I'm going to round this number. I'm going to round it to something that's compatible with 6. This is kind of an easy one because I know 6 can go into 6 easy. So I am going to go ahead and round that to 600. Then I'm going to divide it by 6. And that will mean 600, 600 divided by 6 will be, goes in there one time, and that's just 0. So my answer should be close to 100, and I should have 3 places in my quotient unless it's really, really close to 100 and I have something like 99. So now that I did that, let's get started. We'll set up our box. Remember, the dividend goes inside of the box. 6 goes outside of the box, which is the divisor. And now I'm going to divvy up these 614 Skittles with 6 students. So I see, can I divide into the first number? I can. So after I figure out where I'm dividing, now I go ahead and place my quotient. So I know I'm dividing into 6. I place the quotient. 6 students sharing 6 Skittles. They all get 1. Now that I do that, and I usually write this to remember, after I find the quotient, I multiply. 6 times 1 is 6. After I multiply, I subtract. And I get 0. After I subtract, I bring down the dividend. The next partial dividend in the number, 1 digit at a time, is 1. So now I'm dividing. Another good example for remembering your zeros. Yes, the zeros too. We'll go over that tomorrow. So now I'm dividing into the 1. So first step is to identify where you're dividing into. Next step is to place the quotient. 6 people, 1 Skittle. Nobody's getting anything because we can't share it equally. So everybody's getting 0. After you find the quotient, you multiply. 6 times 0 is still 0 because nobody got anything. After you multiply, you subtract. 1 take away 0 is 1. After I subtract, I bring down the partial dividend. 1 digit at a time, there's another one to bring down. So I bring this down, and it's a 4. Now I have to identify what I'm dividing into. If I bring something down, I figure out what am I dividing into. I am dividing into the 14. 6 people, 14 Skittles. Everybody can have, and I'm going to write it right on top of this 4. Everybody can have 2. And then after I find the quotient, I multiply. 6 times 2 is 12. After I multiply, I subtract. I have 14 Skittles. I use 12. How many do I have left? I have 2 Skittles. Next step is to bring down the dividend. There's nothing else to bring down, so I'm done. So my quotient is 102. Everybody gets 102 Skittles. And 2 Skittles left over, I guess, for Miss Bean, which is fine. She's on a diet. She's always on a diet. Okay. Is that also close to my estimated quotient? It is 100, 102. Very, very close. So I am on the right track. But I'm still going to check because I'm a good student and I want to make sure that I know that I'm right. So I'm going to check by multiplying and adding. This time, yay, I get to practice my skill of adding. I'm going to multiply the quotient with the divisor and then add in the remainder. So my quotient, if I gave everybody 102 Skittles, and I gave it to 6 people, so I gave it out 6 times. How much would I get? I should get this, but I have to add that first. So that is 12, regroup, 0 plus 1, 6. I'm very, very close. Why don't I have the same? Because that 2 remaining that you were giving to Miss Bean needs to be added in. And once I do that, I should get my same answer. And I do, so check. I know that I'm right. Okay, go ahead and try this one, write it down, and then pause the video and check back in and see if you did it right. And please also make sure you multiply and add to check your answer. Know that you're right before you unpause. Okay, after you did that, you should have been able to go through all of your steps of dividing, knowing where to place your first digit, and then dividing through everything, bringing everything down one digit at a time, subtracting, and you end up with 125 as the quotient, and the remainder is 2. Then you want